The coffee at Ruby's diner tasted like pennies and regret. Lisa Parker poured it anyway, her movements mechanical practice from 5 years of the same routine. The name tag pinned to her faded blue uniform had begun to chip at the edges much like her dreams. 27 years old and Chicago's South Side had become less of a home and more of a cage. The autumn rain streaked across the windows, turning the world outside into a watery blur. Late October had already begun to strip the city bare, leaving it cold and gray. Lisa wiped down the counter, her auburn hair pulled back tight, her eyes downcast. The diner smelled of bacon grease and disappointment. She'd stopped dreaming out loud years ago. Dreams hurt too much when they never came true. The door jingled, another customer, seeking shelter from the rain. Lisa didn't look up immediately. She'd learned to move through her days with a certain detachment, a survival mechanism honed through years in the foster care system. "More coffee, Earl?" she asked, an elderly regular already reaching for the pot. "You're an angel, Lisa," the old man replied, his weathered hands cupping the warm mug. The routine was comforting in its predictability. Lisa had memorized every face that walked through those doors, every story behind tired eyes. She knew who would order what, who would tip, who would linger too long. Except him. For 3 days now, a man in a dark coat had sat in the corner booth. He ordered little, tipped well, and watched. Not in the way men sometimes watched her, with hunger or appreciation, but with something else. Something that made the small hairs on her neck stand up. Today he was gone. Lisa exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The bell above the door jingled again. A man in a navy blazer entered, clutching a leather portfolio against his chest like it contained state secrets. His wire-rimmed glasses fogged slightly from the temperature change. He scanned the booth methodically until his eyes landed on her. Lisa Parker. She froze mid-step, coffee pot suspended in air. People who knew her name without introduction never brought good news. The waitress beside her, Trish, gave her a sideways glance. "Yeah," Lisa responded, her voice carefully neutral. "I'm Robert Bennett, attorney at law. May I speak with you privately?" His voice was precise, formal, like his perfectly pressed suit. Customers stared. In a place like Ruby's, anything out of the ordinary became instant theater. Lisa placed the coffee pot down, slowly wiped her hands on her apron. "I'm working. It's important, regarding an inheritance." Lisa tilted her head slightly. "I don't have family." "Nevertheless," he adjusted his glasses with his index finger. "Your shift ends in 20 minutes according to your manager. I'll wait." And he did, sipping bad coffee and checking his expensive watch periodically. When Lisa's shift ended, she found him waiting outside under the awning, the rain creating a curtain around them. Streetlights reflected in the puddles at their feet. "I represent the estate of Walter Blackwood." He began opening his portfolio to shield the papers from the rain. "Mr. Blackwood passed away last month. No surviving children, no spouse." "Never heard of him," Lisa said, crossing her arms against the chill. Bennett handed her a single sheet of cream-colored paper. "He left his property to you, a farm in Oak Ridge, Iowa." Lisa stared at the document. The name on the deed stared back. Lisa Emanuel Parker. It was her, all of it, legal, official, stamped. "Why would a stranger leave me land?" Bennett shook his head. "No explanation in his will, just the transfer documents and this." He handed her a sealed envelope, her name written across it in shaky cursive. "Once you sign the acknowledgement of inheritance, the property is yours. Taxes are paid through the end of year." Mr. Blackwood was particular about his affairs. That night, Lisa sat cross-legged on her mattress in her tiny apartment. The walls were thin enough to hear her neighbor's television. Her 5-year-old daughter Emily slept in the small bedroom they shared, her breath a steady rhythm against the city noise. The envelope sat unopened before Lisa. Her fingers hovered over the flap for minutes before she finally broke the seal. The note inside was brief, penned in the same shaky handwriting. "To Lisa, I know I was never the father I should have been. But if there's a piece of me you'll accept, let it be this land. It once held a family's heartbeat. Maybe it still can. Walter." She folded the paper and pressed it against her chest, a strange ache spreading through her. "Father." The word felt foreign. Her file had always listed father as unknown. Her mother had died when she was young, or so she'd been told. The details were always vague, the paperwork inconsistent. Lisa glanced toward the bedroom where Emily slept. 5 years of double shifts in community college night, classes of daycare costs that ate most of her paycheck of never quite making ends meet. A farm, land, property in her name. It seemed impossible, yet the deed sat beside her, real and tangible. 3 days later, Lisa stepped off the Greyhound bus into a town that looked trapped in amber, Oak Ridge, Iowa, population 1,876. The air smelled different here, earthy clean, tinged with the scent of alfalfa and wood smoke. Emily clung to her hand wide-eyed at the unfamiliar landscape. Main Street consisted of a handful of businesses with faded signs and time-worn facades. A hardware store, a diner, a small library, a sheriff's office. The woman at the bus depot, Dorothy, according to her name tag, widened her eyes when Lisa asked directions to the Blackwood farm. "You're Walter's girl," she said, not a question but a statement. Lisa's pulse quickened. "You knew him." "Everybody knew Walter," Dorothy replied, studying Lisa's face. "Got his eyes, you do. Same shade of blue-gray, 5 miles west, past the grain silos and the old church. Can't miss it. Been in the Blackwood family 3 generations." Lisa rented a dusty pickup from the lone auto shop and drove into the open plains, Emily chattering excitedly from the passenger seat. Her stomach knotted tight. How did that woman recognize her? She'd never set foot in Iowa, had never met Walter Blackwood. Yet people here thought she was his daughter. The truck rattled over gravel roads. Cornfields stretched endlessly on either side, harvested now leaving only stubble in neat rows. The sky was impossibly vast, clouds piled high like mountains. She followed Dorothy's directions, passing the grain silos that rose like sentinels, the white steeple of an old church. The farm appeared at the end of a long driveway nestled behind a broken fence in a thicket of bare trees. The 2-story farmhouse stood weather-beaten and listing slightly to one side. A wide porch wrapped around the front, its railing missing slats like a gap-toothed smile. Behind it sat a large red barn, its paint peeling to reveal the gray wood beneath. A windmill creaked slowly in the distance. It looked like it had been waiting a long time for someone to come back. Lisa stepped out of the truck, the silence wrapping around her like a blanket. No sirens, no footsteps on pavement, no neighbors arguing through thin walls, just wind rustling through brittle corn stalks, the bones of forgotten seasons. Emily tugged at her hand. "Mom, I think someone's waiting for us." Lisa scanned the property, seeing nothing but empty fields and abandoned buildings. "There's no one here, sweetheart." Emily pointed toward the house. "The girl in the kitchen. She's waving." A chill ran up Lisa's spine despite the afternoon sun. "Emily, there's no one there. It's just an empty house." "She says she's happy we're home," Emily insisted, her face earnest. Lisa forced a smile. "You have quite an imagination, don't you?" She squeezed her daughter's hand. "Let's go see our new house." The key fit the lock. The door groaned open on protesting hinges. Inside, the air was thick with dust and time. Sheets draped over furniture like ghosts frozen in mid-movement. Cobwebs clung to corners intricate as lace. Sunlight filtered through grimy windows, illuminating floating dust motes. Lisa moved slowly through the rooms. The living room held a stone fireplace, cold and unused. Above it hung a photograph of a younger man, tall, strong-jawed, with eyes the same shade as hers. Walter Blackwood, she presumed. The kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon. A child's crayon drawing was still pinned to the refrigerator with a magnet. Stick figures beneath a tree labeled "Me and Dad." Her heart clenched painfully. What was this place? Who was Walter Blackwood to her? Emily showed none of Lisa's hesitation, running from room to room with the boundless energy of childhood. "Mom, come see. There's a rocking chair upstairs that looks just like the one in my book." Lisa followed her daughter's voice, climbing stairs that creaked with every step. 2 bedrooms stood mostly bare, one with only a rocking chair by the window, another with stacked boxes and old quilts. But it was the attic door that gave her pause. Unlike the rest of the house, which had been left to gently age, this door was sealed shut. Wooden planks nailed across its frame with a determination that spoke of secrets. Lisa ran her fingers along the edges, trying to understand. Why would someone nail an attic shut? The sound of tires on gravel pulled her attention away. Through the bedroom window, she saw a police cruiser pulling up. A tall man in uniform stepped out, cowboy hat in hand. Lisa tensed instinctively. Law enforcement had rarely meant help in her experience. She made her way downstairs as a knock came at the door. 3 solid raps, authoritative but not threatening. Hello, she called through the screen door. The man stood on the porch, late 50s perhaps, with salt and pepper hair and deep lines around his eyes that suggested both laughter and sorrow. Ma'am, he nodded respectfully. I'm Sheriff James Ramsey. Thought I'd come by and welcome you to Oak Ridge. Word travels fast in a town this size. Lisa opened the door cautiously. I'm Lisa Parker. I know. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, perhaps even emotion quickly masked. I knew Walter. Good man. Did you know he thought he was my father? Ramsey's expression remained carefully neutral. May I come in? Inside, they stood awkwardly in the dust-filled living room. Ramsey removed his hat, revealing a receding hairline. His uniform was pressed, his badge polished. Walter was my friend for 40 years, he said finally. Last 10, he wasn't the same. After the cancer diagnosis, he became fixated on certain things. Like me, Lisa asked, like making amends. Ramsey looked around the room, his gaze settling on the photograph above the fireplace. He left you this place for a reason, Miss Parker. Walter wasn't one for coincidence. I never met him. Ramsey's eyes returned to her sharp and assessing. You sure about that? The question hung in the air between them. Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty house. I think I'd remember meeting my father. Memory's a funny thing. Ramsey put his hat back on. Anyway, I wanted to introduce myself. Let you know if you need anything while you're in town. My office is just off Main. Door's always open. I don't plan to stay long, Lisa said quickly. Just long enough to clear this place out. Maybe sell it. Ramsey nodded, but something in his expression suggested he knew better. Town Diner serves a decent breakfast. Martha's across from the library. Early riser gets the best coffee. After he left, Lisa stood on the porch watching the cruiser disappear down the driveway. Threads of memory tugged at the edges of her mind. Nothing solid, just impressions, the smell of hay, the creak of a rocking chair, a deep voice humming something low and sweet. She shook her head, just imagination filling gaps with wishful thinking. She'd grown up in Chicago foster homes, not here. Not on this farm with its broken fences and faded wallpaper. Mom, Emily's voice came from upstairs. I found a friend. Lisa hurried back inside, following her daughter's voice to the bedroom with the rocking chair. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, seemingly talking to the empty air. Emily, who are you talking to? Lily, Emily replied matter-of-factly. She lives in the attic, but she can't leave because the door is stuck. She says there are letters for her up there. Lisa knelt beside her daughter. Honey, there's no one here. You're just playing pretend, right? Emily's face grew serious, suddenly older than her 5 years. She's not pretend, Mom. She has red hair like mine. She's wearing a blue dress with white flowers. She says you look like her mom. Lisa's blood went cold. How could Emily know about the attic door? They hadn't been near it together, and the description's specific details a child wouldn't normally invent. Emily, this isn't funny. There's no one here but us. Lily says you just can't see her because grown-ups forget how to look. Emily stood up, walking to the attic door. She says there are important things behind this door. Letters her mom wrote. She wants us to open it. Lisa approached the door again, studying the wooden planks nailed across the frame. The wood was old, the nails rusted with age. From her years watching crime shows, she could tell the door had been sealed, perhaps 20 years ago. But some of the scratch marks around the nails looked newer, as if someone had recently tried to pry them loose. Emily, step back, please. Lisa ran her fingers along the wood grain, noting the direction of the nails. They'd been hammered from outside, not from within. Someone had wanted to keep people out of the attic, not trap something inside. Or someone. Mom, please open it. Lily says it's really important. Lisa hesitated. The rational part of her brain said this was ridiculous, following the directions of a child's imaginary friend. But something about Emily's certainty, the specific details of her friend, and the strangeness of this inheritance tugged at her. Wait here, she said finally. She went to the truck and retrieved a small toolbox she'd packed just in case. Hammer, pry bar, screwdrivers, basic tools for basic repairs. When she returned, Emily was still standing by the door, head tilted as if listening. Lily says thank you. She's been waiting a long time. Lisa worked the pry bar between the boards and the door frame, leveraging her weight against it. The wood groaned, resisting at first, then surrendering with a crack. One by one, she removed the boards, sweat beading on her forehead, despite the chill in the house. When the last board came free, the door itself still held fast, locked from the inside. She jimmied the pry bar into the frame and pushed until something splintered. The attic air was dry and cold. Dust swirled in slants of morning light from a small round window. Unlike the rest of the house, this room hadn't been cleared or covered. Boxes were stacked in corners, old furniture huddled beneath sheets, and there beneath the eaves sat a wooden trunk. Its brass latch glinted untouched for years. Lisa knelt slowly and lifted the lid. Inside were baby clothes, a faded stuffed rabbit, and a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. Every envelope was addressed to one named Lily. Lisa's breath caught. Her full name, the one rarely used, was Lisa Emanuel. Lily. She picked up the top letter with trembling fingers. Each envelope was postmarked but unsent, dozens of them spanning years. Emily stood beside her, peering into the trunk. Lily says the most important letters are at the bottom. Lisa shuffled through the stack, finding a yellowed photograph tucked beneath the last bundle. It was cracked and water damaged. A young woman holding a toddler with a gap-toothed smile. The toddler had curly auburn hair, the same hair Lisa saw in the mirror every morning. On the back, in the same handwriting as the letters, Amanda and Lily Summer, 98. Lisa's breath hitched. She had never seen a photo of herself as a baby, never known what her mother looked like. She pressed her forehead to the image, eyes shut tight. The first letter was dated June 1998. My sweet Lily, today you turned 4. I baked a cake anyway and watched the candles burn down. I still remember how your laugh echoed through the kitchen like sunlight. I don't know where you are, but if love could reach across time and space, it would find you. Forever yours, Mom. Lisa gasped, pressing the paper to her lips. A tear slipped down her cheek. The next letter said, they told me I'd never see you again, but they can't stop me from writing to you. Her fingers shook as she reached for another and another. She wasn't abandoned. She was loved, just lost. And someone her mother had never stopped reaching for her through ink and memory. The name signed at the bottom of each letter was Amanda Grace, her mother's name, a name she'd never known. Lisa sat cross-legged on the attic floor, letters spread around her like fallen leaves. The ribbon still curled around her wrist. The trunk sat open before her, patient and reverent, as if it had waited years just to be seen. Each letter unfolded more than words. They unraveled time itself. Mom, Emily's small voice broke through her trance. Why are you crying? Lisa pulled her daughter close, breathing in the clean scent of her hair. These letters are from my mommy. She wrote them to me when I was little, like you. Where is she now? Lisa wiped her eyes. I don't know, sweetheart, but I think we're going to find out. She read the letters slowly, tenderly, as if holding the pages too tightly would smudge the truth. They were all from Amanda, spanning years, first birthdays spent apart, Christmases, school days, Amanda could only imagine. There was no bitterness in them, no anger, only aching tenderness and relentless hope. They told me you were gone for good, Lily, that it was better for you this way. But what kind of better tears a mother from her child? Lisa's throat tightened. She remembered nothing. Not a face, not a voice. Only a name she'd never known was hers. Lily. Why had no one told her? Why was this hidden here, sealed in the attic of a man she never met? In a town she'd never heard of, Lisa needed answers. She gathered the letters and the photo, making her way back downstairs. She placed them carefully on the kitchen table, then began searching every drawer, every cabinet. She turned the house upside down, looking for journals, documents, anything that might explain how Walter Blackwood connected to Amanda Grace, how either of them connected to her. She found nothing. No journals, no legal documents, nothing about child welfare or foster care. The house was nearly bare, as if someone had scrubbed it of history, except for that one room Walter had locked away. Emily followed her mother's frantic search, quiet and watchful. Finally, she tugged at Lisa's sleeve. Mom, Lily says there's more in the barn, in a box behind the hay. Lisa paused, looking at her daughter's earnest face. Emily, I need you to be honest with me. Is Lily really here, or are you just playing a game? She's real, Mom. She knows things. She says she's been waiting for us for a long time. The barn beckoned, next red and sagging. It stood sentinel at the edge of the property. Inside, dust floated through beams of light, slicing in through the broken roof. Farm equipment sat rusted and abandoned. A dusty tractor, old tools hanging on pegs. A rope swing hung unused from a rafter, swaying slightly in the draft. Emily walked straight to the back corner, behind bales of moldy hay. "Here, Mom." Lily says, "Look here." Lisa followed, finding a faded milk crate. Inside was a rusted toolbox, a rolled-up tarp, and a dusty shoebox labeled simply A. Her heart racing, Lisa opened it. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Amanda again and again, always smiling. Alone with a baby with Walter. Lisa froze. Her mother had known Walter Blackwood. In one photo, Amanda stood beside Walter in a field behind the barn, her hand resting gently on his arm. They were smiling. The house stood in the background, still whole, still young. Lisa flipped the photo. On the back in Amanda's handwriting, "Oak Ridge, 1997, you were so proud to teach me how to fix that fence." Lisa sank onto a hay bale, the weight of realization pressing down on her. Walter and Amanda had known each other, been close even. But why hadn't he sent the letters? And why had he written, "I know I was never the father I should have been"? In his note to her, the pieces were starting to form a picture, but it had too many gaps. She needed someone who remembered. The small library on Main Street seemed as good a place as any to start. In towns like this, librarians knew everything. The bell jingled as Lisa entered, reminiscent of Ruby's diner back in Chicago. Emily's hand was warm in hers. A woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and practical reading glasses looked up from behind the desk. "Well, hello there," she said, her voice warm and curious. "You must be Walter Blackwood's girl. I'm Eleanor Jenkins. Run this library for 35 years now." Lisa approached, her heart thudding. "Did you know Walter Blackwood?" "Oh, sure, everyone did. Kept to himself mostly, especially these last few years. But he was kind in his way." "Did he ever have a daughter or know a woman named Amanda Grace?" Eleanor tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly in recollection. "Amanda Grace, Lord, I haven't heard that name in 20 years. She leaned forward. "Pretty girl, young, maybe early 20s when she came here. Worked at the hardware store part-time." "Were there rumors," Lisa pressed, "that she was running from something or someone? Folks always wondered about her, said she came from trouble." Lisa's pulse quickened. "Did she have a baby?" "She did." Eleanor's voice softened. "A little girl. Lily, I think she called her." Lisa's knees weakened. She gripped the counter for support. "What happened to them?" Eleanor hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "One day they were just gone. No note, no goodbye. Walter was never the same after." She trailed off. "What?" "There were rumors. Child services, a man back in Chicago, some kind of custody battle." Eleanor sighed, but no one knew the truth. Walter never spoke of it. "Did she leave Lily behind?" "I don't know, dear. Walter never said, but after they left, he started sealing off parts of the house. Stopped talking to folks, just faded." Lisa left the library with more questions than answers. The afternoon sun was sinking toward the horizon, casting long shadows across Main Street. On impulse, she turned toward the sheriff's office. James Ramsey had known Walter for decades. He might know more than he'd let on. The office was small, just a front desk where a young deputy sat looking bored, and two doors leading to what she presumed were private offices. "Sheriff Ramsey available?" she asked. The deputy looked up. "He's out on a call. Should be back within the hour. You can wait if you'd like." Lisa settled into a hard plastic chair, Emily beside her, flipping absently through an outdated hunting magazine. On the wall, a bulletin board displayed wanted posters, community announcements, and a campaign flyer for someone named Vincent Reynolds running for state governor. His smile looked practiced, his eyes cold despite the friendly expression. "That's our former deputy," the young officer offered, following her gaze. "Moved up to state politics. Folks around here are pretty proud." Something about the man's face made Lisa uneasy, though she couldn't say why. She was about to look away when she noticed a framed photo on the wall behind the deputy's desk. A group of officers from years ago, judging by the uniforms and hairstyles. James Ramsey stood in the center, younger but recognizable, and there to his right was Vincent Reynolds. And behind them, Lisa stood up abruptly. "Is that Walter Blackwood?" She asked, pointing to a tall man in the background. The deputy glanced at the photo. "Yes, ma'am. He wasn't an officer, but he volunteered with the department. Search and rescue mostly." The bell above the door jingled, and Sheriff Ramsey entered, removing his hat. He stopped short when he saw Lisa and Emily. "Ms. Parker, did you need something?" "I found letters," she said without preamble. "In the attic, from my mother to me. She called me Lily." Ramsey's expression remained carefully neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "Let's talk in my office." The sheriff's office was Spartan, a desk, filing cabinets, a window overlooking Main Street. Ramsey gestured for Lisa to sit, then closed the door. Emily climbed onto Lisa's lap, unusually quiet. "Amanda Grace," Lisa continued. "That was my mother's name. She worked at the hardware store. She knew Walter. They were in photos together." Ramsey settled into his chair, hands folded on the desk. "Yes. What happened to her, and how did I end up in foster care in Chicago if I lived here with them?" Ramsey sighed heavily. "It's complicated, Miss Parker." "I deserve to know." "Yes, you do." He leaned back. "Amanda came here in '97, young, scared, pregnant. Walter hired her to help around the farm, gave her a place to stay. When you were born, he doted on you like you were his own. For almost 4 years, you all lived together at that farm. Not as a couple, Walter was too old for her, and she wasn't interested. But as a family of sorts." Lisa struggled to process this. "But I don't remember any of it. You were very young, and what happened after might have affected your memories." "What happened?" Ramsey's eyes grew distant. "There was a man from Chicago. Amanda had been running from him. Vincent Reynolds was deputy then. He handled the case when the man showed up claiming to be your father demanding custody." "Was he my father?" "I don't know. Amanda said no, said he was dangerous, that she'd fled to protect you. But he had documents, court orders. And Vincent, well, let's just say he didn't take Amanda's side." A cold feeling spread through Lisa's chest. What did he do? Nothing illegal on paper. But suddenly Child Protective Services was involved. There were accusations that Amanda was unstable, that Walter was too old to be a proper guardian. It got ugly. And then what? One night Amanda disappeared. "She left me," Lisa's voice cracked. "We don't know. Walter always believed she was forced to run, that she thought it was the only way to keep you safe. After she left, the man from Chicago, along with CPS and the courts, took you away. Walter fought it, but he was in his 60s then, single, no legal relation to you. The system doesn't favor men like that." Lisa's mind reeled. This man from Chicago, who was he? Name was George Parker. Lisa flinched. Parker. Her last name. The one that had followed her through foster care. After you were taken, Walter tried to track you to maintain some connection. But the records were sealed. Your name was changed, or rather shortened, from Emmanuel to just Lisa Parker. And then Walter got sick. Cancer. By the time I convinced him to try again to hire a private investigator, he was too far gone. Lisa felt tears burning her eyes. He found me, though. He knew where to send the inheritance. Ramsey nodded. Last year he hired someone. Spent nearly every penny he had left. All he wanted was to know you were okay. When he found out you were in Chicago working at that diner, I think it gave him peace. Why didn't he contact me while he was alive? He was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't remember him. Afraid you'd reject him. Afraid of stirring up the past and bringing trouble back to your door. Walter was many things, but brave about his feelings wasn't one of them. Lisa wiped a tear from her cheek. And my mother, did he ever find her? No, and not for lack of trying. The weight of it all pressed down on Lisa, an entire history she never knew existed. A mother who wrote letters, never sent. A man who loved her enough to find her but feared reaching out. A farm that still held the echoes of a family torn apart. There's something else you should know, Ramsey said, his expression grave. Vincent Reynolds, the deputy who sided against your mother, he's running for governor now. Powerful friends, spotless reputation. But Walter never trusted him. Said Vincent had something to do with your mother's disappearance, though he could never prove it. Why are you telling me this? Because Walter would have wanted you to be careful. The past has a way of circling back, Miss Parker, especially in small towns like this. As Lisa drove back to the farm, the sun was setting, turning the fields to gold. Her mind raced with fragments of a life she couldn't remember living. She'd come to Oak Ridge expecting to find a property to sell, a loose end to tie up. Instead, she'd found the beginning of a mystery a family she never knew she had, and perhaps somewhere out there a mother who might still be searching for her. Emily had fallen asleep in the truck, exhausted from the day's revelations. Lisa carried her inside, laying her gently on the bed in the smaller bedroom. She covered her with a quilt she'd found in a closet, then stood watching her daughter's peaceful face in the dim light. How much should she tell her? How much could a 5-year-old understand about loss, separation secrets? And what about Emily's friend Lily, the one who'd led them to the letters who'd described clothes from photos Emily had never seen? Lisa wasn't superstitious. She didn't believe in ghosts, but she couldn't explain how Emily knew things she couldn't possibly know. That night, as Lisa curled up on the couch, the letters spread around her, she made a decision. She wouldn't leave. Not yet. Not until she uncovered the full truth about Amanda Grace, about Walter Blackwood, about herself. Outside, rain began to fall. Gentle at first, then harder, drumming against the roof like impatient fingers. The old house creaked and whispered, as if trying to tell her secrets she wasn't yet ready to hear. In the darkness, Lisa whispered, "I'm here now, I'm listening." Thunder rolled across the plains, a deep bass note that seemed to shake the very foundations. And somewhere in the shadowed corners of the attic, the past waited patiently to be discovered. The following morning, Lisa woke to a shaft of sunlight cutting across her face. For a moment, disorientation gripped her, the unfamiliar ceiling, the smell of old wood and dust. Then reality flooded back. The farm, the letters. Amanda Grace, her mother, she made coffee in an ancient percolator she'd found in a kitchen cabinet. The familiar ritual grounded her even as her mind whirled with questions. Outside, the rain had cleared, leaving the world washed clean. Dew sparkled on overgrown grass. A pair of cardinals flitted among the naked branches of an apple tree. Lisa carried her coffee to the porch, settling on the steps. The boards creaked beneath her weight. The farm stretched before her, neglected but still proud. Land that once fed a family that included her. A flash of movement near the road caught her attention, a car slowing, then continuing past. Something about it raised the hairs on her neck. Dark sedan tinted windows, not the usual farm truck you'd expect out here. Lisa returned inside, locking the door behind her, a city habit hard to break. Emily was still asleep, curled around the stuffed rabbit Lisa had found in the trunk. The letters from the attic now covered the kitchen table, arranged chronologically. She began reading again, searching for clues for anything that might explain what happened the night her mother disappeared. Most letters were filled with love and longing. Amanda describing how tall Lily might be growing, what grade she'd be in, how much she missed her daughter's laugh. But one letter dated December 2000 mentioned something different. Walter promised he'd keep you safe, that if they ever came looking, he'd hide the letters and protect your story until you were old enough to come back to it. If you're reading this, Lily, then maybe, just maybe, you found the home I never stopped believing you'd return to. Lisa's hands trembled. Walter hadn't just hidden the letters. He had protected them, protected her story, waiting for her return. But what had Amanda been running from? Who had been looking for them? A noise outside pulled Lisa from her thoughts, the sound of tires on gravel again. She moved to the window, tensing when she saw the same dark sedan from earlier. It sat idling at the end of the driveway for a long moment, then turned around and drove away. Lisa grabbed her phone, dialing the sheriff's office. When Ramsey answered, she didn't waste time on pleasantries. "There's a car watching the farm. Dark sedan, tinted windows. Been by twice today. Get the plates. No too far away. I'll send a deputy to patrol the area. Probably nothing. Could be someone thinking about buying the adjacent property, but lock your doors." Lisa hung up uneasy. She returned to the table, to the fragments of her past. One photo caught her eye, Amanda standing next to a much younger Walter. Both smiling. She flipped it over. The inscription read, "Emma would be proud of how you've helped us, Amanda 97. Emma. Who was Emma? Another piece of the puzzle. Lisa dug deeper into the shoebox, scanning for the name. She found it in a newspaper clipping from decades earlier. Local woman killed in icy crash. The accompanying photograph showed a young woman with auburn hair and a gentle smile. Emma Blackwood, 32, pronounced dead at the scene. She looked like Lisa, or rather, Lisa looked like her. The afternoon faded into evening as Lisa continued her search. In a box of old receipts in the barn, she found documents related to the custody battle, court filings, affidavits, appeals. Walter had spent thousands fighting for her. One document caught her attention, a police report filed by Amanda in Chicago, 1996, alleging stalking and threats by George Parker. The case had been dismissed for insufficient evidence. Lisa's phone rang, startling her. An unfamiliar number. "Hello. Miss Parker, it's Michael Lawson. Sheriff Ramsey gave me your number. There's something you should know." The voice was male, unfamiliar, but not threatening. "Who is this?" "I do odd jobs around town. Used to help Walter with repairs before he got sick. That car you reported, it belongs to one of Reynolds' campaign staff. Been asking questions around town about you." Lisa's pulse quickened. "What kind of questions?" "How long you're staying, what you're doing at the farm, whether you've been talking to people about the past." "Why would Reynolds care about me? Man running for governor doesn't like loose ends, I expect. Especially ones that might connect to things he'd rather stay buried." After hanging up, Lisa paced the kitchen. Her presence in Oak Ridge had clearly triggered attention, unwanted attention. Whatever had happened 20 years ago, someone still cared enough to watch her, to ask questions. She gathered the most important documents, the letters, the shoebox of photos, the police report, and tucked them into her bag. If someone was worried about what she might discover, that meant there was something to find, something worth hiding. Night fell over the farm, the darkness absolute in a way Chicago never was. Lisa double-checked the locks, then settled into the living room with a blanket and the flashlight from her bag. Emily slept soundly in the bedroom. Lisa continued reading Walter's journal deep into the night, searching for any mention of what might have happened to Amanda. One entry stood out: "Search the old Miller property again today. Still no sign of disturbance. Reynolds says I'm becoming obsessed that Amanda simply ran off. But she wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. Wouldn't abandon the letter she wrote Lily. Something happened that night, I feel it in my bones." The old Miller property. Could it be related to George Parker? Lisa made a mental note to ask Ramsey about it in the morning. She must have dozed off because the sound of breaking glass jolted her awake. Lisa sat up, heart pounding. Moonlight spilled through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Another crash from the kitchen. Someone was breaking in. Lisa grabbed her phone, ready to call 911, but there was no signal. Of course, the farmhouse was in a dead zone. She'd noticed it earlier, but hadn't thought it important. Footsteps moved through the kitchen. Heavy, deliberate, not trying to be quiet. Lisa slipped off the couch, staying low. The back door, if she could reach it, she could make it to the truck. Drive for help. But Emily was upstairs. She couldn't leave her daughter. She moved silently across the floor, years of navigating foster homes after curfew making her light on her feet. A floorboard creaked beneath her weight. The footsteps in the kitchen paused, then changed direction, heading toward her. Lisa abandoned stealth for speed, lunging for the stairs. She took them two at a time, her heart hammering against her ribs. Behind her, a large shadow filled the doorway to the living room. She burst into the bedroom where Emily slept. "Emily, wake up," she whispered urgently, shaking her daughter. "We have to go. Now." Emily's eyes flew open, immediately alert. "The bad man is here," she whispered. "We need to hide," Lisa said, looking around desperately for an escape route. The window was too high, the drop too dangerous. Emily tugged her hand. "This way, Mom. Lily says use the hiding place." She led Lisa to the corner of the room, to a section of the floorboards that looked no different from the rest. But when Emily pressed on one edge, a small section popped up, revealing a narrow space beneath a crawl space between the floors, just big enough for them to squeeze into. "How did you know about this?" Lisa whispered as they lowered themselves into the dark space. Lily showed me. She said it was for emergencies." Lisa pulled the board back into place above them, plunging them into darkness. She held Emily close, her daughter's small body trembling against hers. Above them, heavy footsteps moved through the bedroom. Drawers opened and closed. Someone was searching methodically, thoroughly. Lisa covered Emily's mouth with her hands, silencing her breathing. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, the footsteps receded. A door closed somewhere in the house. Then silence. They waited another 20 minutes before Lisa dared to move. She pushed the board up slightly, peering into the moonlit room. Empty. She helped Emily out, then followed, every sense alert for danger. "We need to get to the truck," she whispered. Emily shook her head. "They'll see us. Lily says go through the back window. There's a ladder." Sure enough, when Lisa checked, an old wooden ladder leaned against the house beneath the window. Placed there recently, it seemed. They climbed down carefully, the wood slick with dew. Once on the ground, Lisa led Emily toward the barn, keeping to the shadows. "Where are we going?" Emily whispered. "Somewhere safe." But before they could reach the barn, headlights cut through the darkness. The dark sedan had returned, turning up the driveway. Lisa froze, then pulled Emily toward the cornfield adjacent to the property. They plunged into the rows of stubble, crouching low. The sedan stopped near the house. Two men got out flashlights, sweeping the yard. Lisa held Emily close, heart pounding so loudly she was sure they'd hear it. One man headed toward the barn, while the other began walking the perimeter of the house. "We have to move," Lisa whispered. "Stay low. Follow me." They crawled through the field, the rough corn stubble scratching their hands and knees. Behind them, shouting erupted. They'd been discovered missing. The flashlight beams became more frantic, sweeping across the field. Lisa and Emily pressed themselves flat against the earth as a beam passed inches above their heads. Once it moved on, they continued crawling. Time stretched endlessly as they navigated the cornfield, disoriented in the darkness. Finally, the stalks thinned, and they found themselves at the field's opposite edge. In the distance, Lisa could see lights, a farmhouse perhaps half a mile away. "Can you run?" she asked Emily. The little girl nodded, her face dirty but determined. They sprinted across open ground, Lisa's lungs burning, Emily's small legs pumping beside her. Behind them, shouts indicated the searchers had discovered their escape route. They pushed harder, the distant lights growing closer. Finally, they reached the gravel driveway, a modest farmhouse at its end. A dog began to bark inside. Lisa pounded on the door, gasping for breath. "Help, please." The porch light came on. The door opened a crack, revealing an elderly woman in a nightgown, a shotgun visible in her hands. "Who's there? Please," Lisa managed between breaths. "Someone broke into our house, the Blackwood place. They're after us." The woman studied them for a moment, then opened the door wider. "Get in, child, quick." Once inside, the woman locked the door and pulled the curtains. "Mabel Jenkins," she introduced herself briskly, still holding the shotgun. "Now what's this about someone chasing you?" Lisa explained in rushed whispers about the break-in that chased the men searching the field. Mabel nodded, face grim. "Not the first time trouble's found its way to the Blackwood place," she said, moving to the phone. "I'm calling James Ramsey." 20 minutes later, Sheriff Ramsey's cruiser pulled up outside, followed by a deputy's vehicle. Lisa watched from the window as they searched the area, but there was no sign of the dark sedan or its occupants. Ramsey entered Mabel's kitchen, hat in hand. "You all right, Ms. Parker?" Emily. Lisa nodded shakily. "They broke into the farmhouse, chased us. We hid in the cornfield." "Did you see who it was?" "Two men. Couldn't see their faces clearly." "I'll have a deputy take you back to collect your things. You shouldn't stay at the farm tonight." "I'm not leaving Oak Ridge," Lisa said firmly. "Not until I know what happened to my mother." Ramsey studied her face, seeing perhaps the same determination that had driven Walter Blackwood for decades. "There's a motel on the edge of town. Not fancy, but clean. I'll have a deputy stationed outside." As they drove back to the farm, Lisa clutched her bag containing the letters and photos. Someone had broken in, looking for something. Perhaps the very evidence she now carried. Evidence of what she still didn't know, but she was getting closer. The farm was eerily quiet when they arrived, the broken window in the kitchen, the only sign of the intruders. Inside, Lisa found the house had been searched, drawers, open furniture, moved the attic door standing open. They had been looking for something specific. Lisa gathered their clothes and personal items, then followed the deputy back to his cruiser. As they drove away, she looked back at the farmhouse silhouetted against the night sky. Somewhere in its bones, in its history, lay the answers she sought. And someone was willing to frighten her away to keep those answers buried. At the motel, Lisa spread the documents across the bed, organizing them chronologically. The picture was becoming clearer. Amanda fleeing an abusive relationship with George Parker, finding sanctuary with Walter, building a life for herself and Lily. Then Parker tracking them down using his connections, and Vincent Reynolds' help to take Lily away. But what had happened to Amanda that night? Why had she never come back? Lisa traced the words from Walter's journal. "Search the old Miller property again today." There was a Miller property near Oak Ridge, perhaps where George Parker had stayed during the custody battle. Could it hold clues to Amanda's disappearance? A knock at the door startled her. Lisa approached cautiously, peering through the peephole to see Sheriff Ramsey standing outside. She opened the door. "Any sign of them?" she asked. Ramsey shook his head. No, but I found something you should see. He handed her a manila folder. This was in the old case files, sealed until now. Inside was a police report dated the night Amanda disappeared. Walter had reported her missing, claiming he'd seen Vincent Reynolds' patrol car at the farm earlier that evening. Reynolds had denied being there, claimed he was responding to a call across town. The case was eventually closed, labeled as a voluntary disappearance. Reynolds buried this, Ramsey said quietly. I was a junior deputy then. Didn't have the authority to question him. And now he's running for governor, Lisa said bitterly. Politics has a way of bringing old ghosts back to life. Reynolds must be worried about what you might uncover. Lisa looked up sharply. The Miller property Walter mentioned in his journal. What is it? Old hunting cabin about 10 miles outside town. George Parker stayed there while the custody battle was happening. Been abandoned for years now. I need to see it. Ramsey hesitated. After what happened tonight, that's not a good idea. Someone broke into my home, chased me through a cornfield. I deserve to know why. Lisa's voice was steel. Take me there tomorrow, please. Ramsey studied her, seeing perhaps the same determination that had driven Walter for decades. First light, he agreed finally. But we do this carefully. Reynolds has friends everywhere. That night, Lisa dreamed of running again. Not through a cornfield, but through the halls of a sterile building, voices calling a name that wasn't quite hers. She woke with the first gray light of dawn, Walter's journal clutched to her chest like a shield. Emily stirred beside her, eyes opening. Mom, we're going to find her today. Lisa brushed her daughter's hair from her face. Find who, sweetie? The sad lady, the one who's been waiting. Emily's eyes were clear, certain. Lily says she needs us to find her so she can rest. Outside Mabel's window, dawn spread across the fields, painting them gold and amber. Lisa hadn't slept much. Every sound, the house settling, the wind through the eaves, had jerked her awake, heart racing. Emily, by contrast, had slept deeply beside her, occasionally murmuring to herself, having conversations and dreams that Lisa couldn't hear. Sheriff Ramsey's cruiser pulled up at precisely 6:30 a.m. He stood on the porch, hat in hand, looking grim in the morning light. Lisa had already packed their few belongings, unsure when or if they'd return to the farm. I think Emily should stay with Mabel, Lisa whispered, glancing at her daughter, who sat at the kitchen table calmly eating toast. I don't know what we'll find at that cabin. Emily set down her glass of orange juice with deliberate care. No, Mom, I'm coming too. Lily says I need to be there. Honey, this isn't about Lily. This is, be careful, Mom. Lily says there are two ladies there, not just one. Emily's voice carried no childish whimsy, just quiet certainty. A chill ran up Lisa's spine despite the warmth of Mabel's kitchen. How did Emily know they were searching for someone Lisa hadn't told her about the possibility that Amanda might never have left Oak Ridge willingly? 20 minutes later, they were in Ramsey's cruiser heading out of town. The landscape changed gradually, farmland giving way to rolling hills dotted with scrubby oak trees. Michael Lawson followed behind in his pickup truck, a precaution Ramsey had insisted on. Never hurts to have backup, he'd said, eyes scanning the rearview mirror periodically. Lisa studied the handyman through the rear window, broad-shouldered, mid-30s, with the weathered look of someone who worked outdoors. There was something solid about him, trustworthy in a way she couldn't articulate. He'd shown up at Mabel's that morning without being asked, simply stating he'd heard about the break-in and thought they might need help. The cruiser turned onto a rutted dirt track barely wide enough for the vehicle. Branches scraped against the windows as they penetrated deeper into the woods. Miller properties just ahead. Ramsey's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Been abandoned since the custody case ended. County seized it for back taxes years ago, but no one's wanted to buy it. The cabin appeared through the trees, small weathered, its windows broken and door hanging askew. Nature was reclaiming it, vines climbing the walls, saplings pushing through the rotted porch. Emily pressed her face against the window, unusually quiet. Stay in the car while I check it out, Ramsey said, hand moving to his sidearm. But Emily was already opening her door. The lady is waiting, she said, simply sliding out before Lisa could stop her. The three adults followed, watching as Emily walked straight to the cabin with purpose that belied her 5 years. She stopped at the porch steps, waiting for them to catch up. Lisa took her daughter's hand, feeling small fingers cold despite the morning warmth. Inside the cabin was a single room, moldering furniture, a stone fireplace, debris from years of neglect. Animals had nested in the corners. Sunlight filtered through holes in the roof, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. The smell of decay and abandonment hung heavy. Emily walked to one corner, stopping over a section of floor where the planks ran perpendicular to the rest, forming a rough square. She pointed down without speaking. "What is it, sweetie?" Lisa knelt beside her daughter. "Underneath. That's where they put the lady." Lisa felt the blood drain from her face. She looked up at Ramsey, who had already drawn his flashlight. Michael moved closer, his expression grim. "Could be a root cellar." Ramsey knelt, examining the area. These old hunting cabins sometimes had storage beneath. He pulled a pocket knife from his belt, then worked it into the seam of the square. The wood groaned, then lifted, revealing darkness below. The smell hit them, first damp earth and decay. Ramsey shone his flashlight into the hole, revealing a narrow set of steps leading down. "Mom, be careful of the broken step." Emily tugged at Lisa's sleeve. "Lily says the third one is broken." Lisa looked at her daughter with growing unease. "How could you possibly know that?" "Lily's showing me. She can see everything that happened here." Ramsey tested each step with his foot. The third one cracked beneath his weight, nearly sending him tumbling into the darkness. He regained his balance, exchanging a look with Lisa that mingled disbelief and growing acceptance of something inexplicable. "I'll go first," Ramsey said. "Lawson, you stay up here with Emily." "No," Emily's voice was small but firm. "I need to come too. Lily says I need to help the lady." "Emily, this isn't a place for children." Lisa crouched to her daughter's eye level. "Mom, please. Lily says it's important." Tears welled in her eyes. "I promised her." Against her better judgment, Lisa relented. "Stay right behind me. Hold my hand the entire time." The steps creaked ominously as they descended into the earth, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, Ramsey's flashlight revealed a small room with walls of packed earth and a dirt floor. Empty except for a rusted metal trunk against one wall. Lisa's heart pounded as Ramsey approached the trunk. It wasn't locked. He lifted the lid, slowly shining the light inside. Lisa moved closer, peering over his shoulder. The trunk contained clothing, a woman's clothing folded neatly, and on top a small notebook. Lisa reached for it with trembling hands. The first page bore a name in familiar handwriting. Amanda Grace. She opened it, heart in her throat. It was a diary. The final entry was dated the night Amanda disappeared. "Reynolds came tonight. Says he'll testify that I'm unfit, that Walter is too old to care for Lily. Says George has friends in high places, that I'll never win. Offered me a choice: leave town tonight, never contact Lily again, and they'll let me live. Or stay and fight, and they'll make sure I never see my daughter again, one way or another. I don't trust him. I'm meeting Walter at midnight. We'll take Lily and start fresh somewhere George can't find us. If you're reading this, Lily, know that I never stopped fighting for you, never stopped loving you. I'll find you again no matter how long it takes." Lisa looked up, tears streaming down her face. She was planning to run with me, with Walter. She never abandoned us. Ramsey's expression was grim. She never made it back to the farm that night. The implication hung in the air between them, heavy as stone. Amanda had never left town voluntarily. She had never abandoned her daughter. Something or someone had stopped her from returning to the farm, from taking Lily to safety. "Reynolds," Lisa whispered, "and George Parker." Emily stood silently in the corner, her small face solemn in the flashlight's beam. She reached out her hand, touching the empty air beside her, as if comforting someone invisible. "She's here," Emily said softly. "She's been waiting for us." Back at the motel, Lisa called Detective Diana Mercer, the state police investigator Ramsey had contacted. The discovery at the cabin warranted more resources than the small Oak Ridge Sheriff's Department could provide. Within hours, the detective arrived, a tall woman in a charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Walk me through everything again," Mercer said, spreading the evidence across the motel room table. Amanda's diary, Walter's journal, the letters, the photos. Her methodical approach gave Lisa something solid to hold on to when it felt like the world was spinning out of control. Emily sat cross-legged on the bed, watching with unnerving focus. Occasionally, she would nod or smile at empty air, as if receiving confirmation of some unspoken question. "We need to get a team out to that cabin." Mercer closed her notebook. "Ground-penetrating radar. Cadaver dogs. If there's anything to find, we'll find it. My daughter knew about the cellar, knew about the broken step. Lisa lowered her voice, glancing at Emily, who now colored quietly in a book Mabel had given her. She keeps talking about someone named Lily showing her things. Lily, that was your childhood name? Mercer's expression remained professionally neutral. Lisa nodded. According to the letters, yes, but Emily couldn't have known that. I never told her. Children sometimes have sensitivities adults have lost. Mercer chose her words carefully. I've seen cases where victims seem to communicate through unlikely channels. I don't discount anything anymore. They were interrupted by a knock at the door. Mercer's hand moved instinctively toward her sidearm as Lisa approached the peephole. Michael Lawson stood outside, his expression urgent. Reynolds' people are at the farm, he said when Lisa opened the door. Two men in suits going through the house. How do you know they're Reynolds' people? Mercer asked. The sedan matches the description from last night, and I recognize one of them, Richard Davies, Reynolds' campaign manager. I did some work on his lake house last summer. Mercer was already reaching for her phone. I'll get a warrant. They have no right to be on that property. Wait, Lisa's mind raced. Let's see what they want first. Maybe we can find out why Reynolds is so interested in what I might discover. 2 hours later, Lisa pulled into the farm's driveway in the rental truck. She'd left Emily with Mercer at the motel despite her daughter's protests. This confrontation was too risky to involve a child. The black sedan still sat in front of the house. Two men emerged as she approached, one tall and lean, the other shorter, with a fighter's build. Both wore expensive suits that looked out of place against the weathered farmhouse. Ms. Parker, the taller man, stepped forward, hand extended. Richard Davies, campaign manager for State Senator Reynolds. We've been trying to reach you. Lisa didn't take his hand. You have an interesting way of reaching out, breaking into private property. Davies' smile didn't reach his eyes. A misunderstanding. We simply wanted to inspect the property. The senator is concerned about these allegations being investigated. He'd like to offer his assistance in resolving this matter. You mean he'd like to buy my silence? Lisa's voice remained steady despite the anger coursing through her. The senator is prepared to be generous. This property, for instance, so any liens, taxes, repairs all taken care of, plus a substantial cash settlement in exchange for withdrawing your claims. Michael's truck pulled up behind Lisa's, the handyman stepping out to stand beside her. His presence felt like a shield at her back. I believe Ms. Parker asked you to leave. Michael's voice carried quiet authority. The second man moved his jacket slightly, revealing a holstered weapon at his hip, not a direct threat, but a message nonetheless. Lisa felt a cold anger replace her fear. Tell Reynolds I'm not interested in his money. What I want is justice for my mother. Now get off my land before I call Sheriff Ramsey to remove you. Davies' smile faltered. You're making a mistake, Miss Parker. The senator has many friends, many resources. This won't end well for you. Is that a threat, Mr. Davies? A prediction. Think about our offer. You have until tomorrow. He handed her a business card, then both men returned to their SUV. As they drove away, Lisa realized her hands were shaking. Michael placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. You okay? No, she admitted, but I'm not backing down. They spent the afternoon going through the remaining boxes in Walter's storage room, piecing together a family history Lisa had never known existed. Emma and David Blackwood had one daughter, Caroline, born in 1973. When they died, Emma in the car accident, David from a heart attack 6 months later, 5-year-old Caroline entered the foster system. Walter, Emma's brother, tried to gain custody, but was denied due to his age and single status. Caroline ran away from her foster home at 16, disappeared for years, then reappeared at Walter's farm in 97, pregnant and scared, using her middle name, Amanda, presumably to hide from George Parker. Walter was trying to protect his family, Lisa said softly, staring at a faded photograph of a teenage Caroline. First Caroline, then me. Why didn't he tell you who he really was in the note? Michael asked, carefully refolding a stack of court documents. Lisa pondered this. Maybe he thought it would be too much all at once. Or maybe he was afraid if Parker was still out there, still watching, knowing our true connection might put me in danger. That evening, Lisa called Detective Mercer, relating their discoveries in the confrontation with Reynolds' men. Threatening witnesses, Mercer's voice tight with anger. Add that to the list of charges. I'm sending an officer to the motel tonight. Don't stay alone. The next morning brought a breakthrough. Mercer called early, her voice charged with excitement, beneath her professional demeanor. We may have found George Parker, current address in Wisconsin, remarried, 2 children, works in finance. We're sending officers to interview him today. He's alive. Lisa hadn't realized how much she'd assumed he was dead or had disappeared. Very much so. And here's something else. We've been digging into Reynolds' history. Back in 2001, he received a substantial donation to his first campaign for county sheriff. Guess who made it? Parker, Lisa said, pieces fallen into place. Through a shell company. But yes, and there's more. Reynolds owns property adjacent to the old Miller cabin, 10 acres that supposedly belonged to his uncle. But the deed transfer looks suspicious. We're bringing in forensic accountants. Lisa's mind raced. The night my mother disappeared. You think Reynolds did something to her? We're focusing the search on that area. Ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs. If there's anything to find, we'll find it. After hanging up, Lisa relayed the news to Michael as they drove back to the farm. The air between them crackled with nervous energy. So Parker is alive, Michael said, hands tight on the steering wheel. What will you do if you meet him? Lisa had asked herself the same question all morning. I don't know. Part of me wants to confront him, demand answers. Another part never wants to see his face. You don't owe him anything, Michael said firmly. Not even your anger. At the farm, they continued sorting through Walter's archives, looking for anything that might help the investigation. In a box from 2001, Lisa found a small, recordable device, the kind used for voice memos before smartphones existed. On it was a single recording dated October 15, 2001, the night Amanda disappeared. They listened in stunned silence to the captured conversation. You understand the arrangement. Miss Grace, you disappear tonight. No contact with the child, no attempts to find her. In return, you get to live. And if I refuse, Amanda's voice frightened but defiant, then I can't guarantee your safety or the old man's, or even Lily's. Accidents happen, you know, especially to troublesome women who don't know their place. Victor, please, we grew up together. You know me. I know you're making trouble for important people. People who can help my career or end it. Choose wisely, Caroline. A door closed. Footsteps. Then Walter's voice, urgent. Did you get that? He threatened her. We have proof now. The recording ended. Lisa and Michael stared at each other, the implications hanging heavy between them. Reynolds knew her real name, Lisa whispered. He called her Caroline, and Walter was recording it. He knew something might happen. Lisa called Mercer immediately, the detective's voice sharpening with interest as Lisa described the recording. Don't move, Mercer ordered. I'm sending a team to secure that evidence. This is the smoking gun we needed. While waiting for the state police, Lisa and Michael continued searching the room. In a metal lockbox hidden behind the shelving, they found a manila envelope labeled insurance. Inside were photographs, Reynolds' patrol car at the Miller cabin the night Amanda disappeared. Reynolds and Parker meeting at a restaurant, cash changing hands. Walter was investigating them, Michael said in awe. All these years gathering evidence, but he never used it. Why? Lisa asked, confusion evident in her voice. Maybe he couldn't, not without putting you at risk. The state police arrived within the hour, Detective Mercer leading the team. She examined the recording device and photographs with professional efficiency, her expression growing more determined by the minute. This changes everything, she said, carefully bagging the evidence. We now have documented proof of conspiracy, threats, and possible murder. Reynolds' political career is over. Am I? Lisa asked, the question that had haunted her for days finally spoken aloud. Mercer's expression softened slightly. The search team at the Miller property found something this morning, a disturbed area of soil near the old well. We're excavating now. Lisa's knees weakened. Michael's hand found hers, steadying her. I want to be there, she said firmly. Mercer hesitated, then nodded. We'll escort you, but I should warn you, after 20 years, there may not be much to find. Before leaving, Lisa called the motel. Emily had been staying with Mabel, safer there than trailing her mother through this grim investigation. How is she? Lisa asked, the weight of maternal guilt pressing down on her. What kind of mother drags her child into something like this? Drawing pictures all morning, Mabel replied. Strange things, a cabin I've never seen, a well with a big oak tree beside it, said someone named Lily was showing her. Lisa's throat tightened. Can I talk to her? Emily's voice came through small but clear. Mom, did you find the ladies yet? Not yet, sweetheart. I'm going to look now. Be careful of the tree, Mom, the one that fell down by the well. Lily says that's where they are. Lisa nearly dropped the phone. How do you know about a tree by the well? I told you. Emily's voice held the infinite patience children sometimes show adults who ask obvious questions. Lily is showing me. She knows where everything is. The Miller property looked different in daylight, less ominous, more pathetic. The cabins sagged, further reclaimed by nature. At the edge of the clearing, state police technicians worked methodically around an excavated area. Tarps had been laid out, equipment arranged with precision. And there, exactly as Emily had described, lay a fallen oak tree beside an old stone well. Lisa stood at a distance, Michael beside her, as Mercer consulted with the forensics team. Time stretched endlessly, the autumn sun arcing across the sky. Finally, Mercer approached, her expression grave. We found human remains, she said gently. Female, the right age range, been there about 20 years. Lisa nodded, unable to speak. After all this time wondering, the truth was simultaneously devastating and freeing. Her mother hadn't abandoned her, hadn't chosen to disappear. She had been silenced permanently to protect powerful men's secrets. There's something else, Mercer continued, more hesitant now. We found 2 sets of remains, both female, different ages. The second set has been there longer, 30 years, maybe more. We'll need DNA to confirm identities. A cold realization washed over Lisa. The house fire that killed my grandparents in 1978. It wasn't an accident, was it? Mercer's silence was answer enough. Back at the motel, Lisa sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. Emily had been unusually quiet since Lisa's return, watching her mother with solemn eyes. She talked to me, Emily said, finally climbing onto Lisa's lap, the lady with the red hair like mine. Lisa pulled her daughter close. What did she say, sweetie? She said she loves you very much, that she never wanted to leave you. Emily traced the tear tracks on Lisa's cheek with a small finger. She said now she can rest because you found her. How do you see her, Emily and Lily? How do you know things you couldn't possibly know? Emily shrugged, the gesture heartbreakingly adult on her 5-year-old frame. I've always seen them, Mom, the people others can't see. I thought everyone did, but you always said they were just my imagination. And Lily, who is she? She's you, Mom. When you were little, she got left behind when they took you away. She's been waiting for you to come back. That night, Lisa dreamed of a small girl with auburn hair playing in a sunlit kitchen, a woman, Amanda, baking cookies at the counter, Walter coming in from the fields, lifting the child into his arms. A family. Her family. When she woke, tears dampened her pillow, but they weren't entirely from sorrow. 2 days later, the state police arrested Vincent Reynolds at a campaign fundraiser. The rising political star, days away from securing his party's nomination for governor, was led away in handcuffs. Charges of murder, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice read before rolling news cameras. George Parker was taken into custody the same day in Wisconsin. His carefully constructed life financier, husband-father of 2 collapsing like a house of cards. His respectable facade stripped away. Lisa watched the news coverage from the farmhouse, now partially restored. Michael had helped her replace broken windows, fix the sagging porch, clear out years of neglect. The work gave her hands something to do while her heart processed decades of lies. You staying? Michael asked one evening as they sat on the newly repaired porch steps. After all this is over. Lisa looked out over the fields, golden in the setting sun. The question held more than curiosity. It carried hope, possibility, a future neither had dared mention aloud. I think so, she said softly. There's something here for me. Something I've been searching for my whole life without knowing it. Roots, Michael suggested quietly. Roots, Lisa agreed, and maybe a future too. A week later, Detective Mercer arrived at the farm with a file under her arm and news that would shatter the final illusions. DNA tests confirmed it, she said, seated at Walter's kitchen table. The remains we found are Caroline Grace and Emma Blackwood. Lisa frowned. My grandmother died in a car accident in 1975. That's what Walter was told, what everyone was told. Mercer opened the file, revealing autopsy reports. But Emma Blackwood didn't die in 75. She was reported missing in 1978 along with her husband, David. The house fire that supposedly killed them, it was set to cover their disappearance. I don't understand. We've been looking deeper into George Parker's history. Before he was George Parker, he was George Reynolds, Vincent's older brother. The revelation hit Lisa like a physical blow. Reynolds and Parker are brothers. Half-brothers, same father. George changed his name after some legal troubles in the 70s. And here's where it gets complicated. George worked for your grandfather, David Blackwood. David owned a successful construction company. There were allegations of embezzlement with George as the prime suspect. Before charges could be filed, the house fire happened. Lisa was beginning to see the pattern, but they weren't in the house. They were buried at the Miller property, probably killed to cover up the embezzlement. The Reynolds brothers have been protecting each other's secrets for decades. Mercer paused. When Caroline showed up at Walter's farm pregnant with a war child, she must have recognized George, maybe threatened to expose him. So history repeated itself. Lisa sat in stunned silence, the full horror of her family's destruction washing over her. 3 generations destroyed by greed and corruption. Walter had suspected something but could never prove it, not without putting Lily at risk too. There's one more thing, Mercer said, pulling out a sealed evidence bag. We found this in Reynolds' safe at his home. It belongs to you now. Inside was a silver locket tarnished with age. Lisa opened it with trembling fingers to find a tiny photograph, a young woman holding a baby, both smiling at the camera. On the back, an inscription, Caroline and Lily forever loved. The evidence against Reynolds and Parker was overwhelming. Reynolds' political connections evaporated overnight. Former allies distanced themselves. The brothers who had built their success on others' destruction now faced life imprisonment. 2 weeks before the trial was set to begin, Lisa received an unexpected call from Mercer. George Parker wants to meet with you, the detective said without preamble. Says he has information about your mother that wasn't in the official statement. It's your choice entirely. Lisa considered refusing. This man had destroyed her family, robbed her of her mother, her identity. But something in her needed closure, needed to look him in the eye just once. The meeting took place in an interview room at the state police headquarters. George Parker looked smaller than Lisa had imagined, a middle-aged man in prison-orange shoulders, slumped eyes darting nervously. Thank you for coming, he said as Lisa took the seat across from him. Detective Mercer stood in the corner, watchful. I'm not here for you, Lisa said flatly. I'm here for the truth. Parker nodded, accepting this. I want to clarify something. I didn't kill your mother. Vincent did that on his own. I never wanted her dead. Just silenced, frightened away from you. At least he had the decency not to lie. Caroline recognized me when she came to Oak Ridge. She'd found old photographs of me with her father. Started asking questions, threatening to go to the police. I panicked. So you had Reynolds threaten her, force her to leave her child behind. That was the plan, but Vincent, he always took things too far. Had a temper. Parker trailed off. And my grandparents. Did they refuse to cooperate too? Parker looked away. That was different business. They discovered the embezzlement. I was young, stupid. It escalated. Escalated into murder, why, Lisa said coldly. I've made a deal with the prosecutor. Full confession details about other crimes Vincent was involved in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. He leaned forward. But there's something else. Something that wasn't part of the deal. Something for you. Lisa waited, suspicious. Your mother had an insurance policy, small, but it named you as beneficiary. After she disappeared, I redirected it, invested it. It's grown considerably over 20 years. You stole from me, too. I did, but I've signed it all over to you. $5 million, give or take. It's blood money, I know, but maybe you can use it for something good. Something Caroline would have wanted. Lisa stood unable to bear his presence any longer. My mother's name to you was Amanda. You don't get to call her Caroline. You don't get to pretend you knew her or cared about her. And you don't get absolution from me. Outside in the crisp autumn air, Lisa breathed deeply, cleansing her lungs of the stale prison atmosphere. Mercer joined her a moment later. The money is real, the detective said. Already transferred to a trust in your name. His lawyers arranged it yesterday. I don't want his blood money. I understand. But consider this, it was Caroline's money first meant for you. Maybe there is a way to honor her with it. When Lisa returned to the farm, Emily was waiting on the porch drawing in a sketchbook. Michael worked nearby, replacing rotted boards on the steps. The scene felt like a future Lisa had never dared imagine, a home of family peace after so much chaos. Lily says we can stay here forever, Emily said as Lisa sat beside her. She likes it when you fix things, when you make the house happy again. Lisa wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders. Does Lily talk to you a lot? Emily nodded. She says she's part of me now, that she's not sad anymore because we came home. Lisa looked out over the farm, her farm with new eyes. Not just a property to sell, but a legacy, a birthright, a place where generations of her family had lived and loved and eventually been torn apart, but also a place where healing could begin. Mom, Emily's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Can we stay? Can this be our home now? Lisa kissed the top of her daughter's head, inhaling the sweet scent of her hair. Yes, sweetheart, we're staying, we're home. Part 3, Justice and Rebirth. The November wind slapped against the courtroom windows as Lisa organized her notes for tomorrow's testimony. For months, the state prosecutor had prepared her for this moment, the day she would face Vincent Reynolds in court. Outside protesters and supporters clashed their chants about the fallen political star, drifting up to the empty conference room where Lisa sat alone. The evidence had become irrefutable after the discovery at the Miller cabin. Forensic anthropologists confirmed the identities of both sets of remains through mitochondrial DNA matching with Lisa. Carolyn Grace and Emma Blackwood, mother and grandmother, had been silenced by the same men in the same place decades apart. The recording Walter had made of Reynolds threatening Amanda had become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. In the months since its discovery, 5 more cold cases had been linked to the Reynolds brothers' missing women whose families had spent decades wondering, just as Walter had. Lisa tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, glancing at her watch. Michael would be bringing Emily to Mabel soon. They'd agreed the courtroom was no place for a child, especially one as sensitive as Emily. The night before, her daughter had climbed into her lap during bedtime stories, suddenly solemn. They're all going to be there tomorrow, watching, Emily had whispered. Grandma Amanda says you don't need to be scared. I'm not scared of Reynolds, Lisa had replied, although it wasn't entirely true. I'm just worried about saying everything right. Emily had patted her cheek with small fingers. Lily says just tell the truth. That's all you need to do. A knock at the conference room door broke Lisa's reverie. Mercer stood in the doorway, her usual severe suit replaced by a more casual sweater. Thought you might want company. Or coffee. She held up a paper cup from the cafe across the street. Lisa accepted gratefully. Any updates? Reynolds' attorney made another plea offer this morning. The prosecutor turned it down. Mercer sat beside her. They're desperate. The evidence is overwhelming. And Parker, still testifying against his brother as agreed, his sentencing is scheduled for next month. Mercer studied Lisa's face. How are you holding up? Lisa considered the question. 5 months ago, she'd been a waitress with a GED and a mountain of bills. Now she was the central witness in a case that had upended the state's political landscape. I'm doing this for them. Walter, Amanda, Emma, they spent decades waiting for justice. They'd be proud of you, Mercer said simply. When Lisa returned to the motel that evening, Michael was waiting on the small sofa papers spread across the coffee table. Blueprints permits contractor, quotes, the groundwork for transforming the Blackwood farm. What had begun as a vague idea had crystallized over the past months into something concrete, a shelter for women and children fleeing violence funded by Parker's blood money. The contractor can start on the barn conversion next week, Michael said, clearing space for the takeout containers he'd brought. Electrical needs to be completely redone, but the structure is sound. Lisa settled beside him, accepting the offered carton of noodles. I was thinking about names today. The Grace Blackwood Haven, for my mother and grandmother. Michael tested the name. It's perfect. Strong like them. Like you. They ate in companionable silence. In the months since the discovery at the cabin, their relationship had evolved naturally, neither pushing nor pulling. Michael had become her anchor in the storm, steady, reliable, asking nothing but offering everything. Sometimes Lisa caught him looking at her with an expression that made her breath catch, but he never pressed for definitions or commitments. There would be time for that after the trial, after justice had been served. Emily asked if she could plant flowers at the farmhouse tomorrow. Michael said, breaking the silence. Mabel said she'd help her. I think she wants to do something special before you testify. Lisa's throat tightened. Her daughter's intuitive understanding of the gravity of events continued to astonish her. That would be nice. Maybe marigolds by the porch steps. Already got them. And some tulip bulbs for spring. Michael's hand found hers across the sofa cushions. One day at a time, right? One day at a time. The mantra that had carried Lisa through the hardest years of single motherhood now guided her through this uncharted territory of reclaiming her past while building a future. The courtroom fell silent as Lisa took the stand the following morning. The overhead lights seemed unnecessarily harsh, illuminating every face in the packed gallery. Reynolds sat at the defense table, his expensive suit a poor disguise for the hollowness in his eyes. His political aspirations had crumbled when the evidence came to light, former allies distancing themselves with practiced speed. The prosecutor approached her heels, clicking on the polished floor. Ms. Parker, could you please tell the court your full legal name? Lisa took a deep breath. Lisa Emanuel Parker. But I was born Lily Emanuel Grace. And you're now using the name Lisa Emanuel Parker Blackwood, is that correct? Yes, to honor my mother's family. The questioning proceeded methodically, tracing the journey from Chicago to Oak Ridge, the discovery of the letters, the investigation with Ramsey and Mercer, the fateful exploration of the Miller cabin. With each answer, Lisa felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The truth so long buried was finally being heard. During a brief recess, Lisa stood in the courthouse hallway, rolling her shoulders to release the tension. Through the window, she caught sight of a small figure in the courthouse garden. Emily in her red coat planning something with Mabel. Watching her daughter's careful movements, Lisa felt a surge of gratitude so intense it brought tears to her eyes. Whatever darkness had preceded them, Emily's future would be built on truth, not secrets. When court resumed, the prosecutor handed Lisa a sheet of paper. Ms. Blackwood, I'd like you to read, if you're comfortable, from your victim impact statement. Lisa unfolded the paper, though she hardly needed it. These words had been forming in her heart since the day she opened the trunk in Walter's attic. My name is Lisa Emanuel Parker Blackwood. She began, her voice steady despite the emotion swelling in her chest. I am the daughter of Caroline Grace, granddaughter of Emma and David Blackwood. For most of my life, I didn't know these names. I didn't know my history. I was Lily, then Lisa, a girl with no roots, no family, no understanding of why I felt so adrift in the world. She looked directly at Reynolds, then at the jury. These men stole more than lives. They stole identities. They stole histories. They robbed me of my mother's love, my grandfather's protection. They scattered our family like ashes, thinking we would disappear into the wind. The courtroom remained utterly still. But they underestimated the power of love. They underestimated Walter Blackwood's determination to find the truth. They underestimated the bond between mother and daughter, the connection that survived even death. Lisa's voice wavered slightly but remained firm. Caroline Grace wrote letters she never sent, preserved for the daughter she believed would someday find her way home. Walter Blackwood spent decades gathering evidence, waiting for the moment when justice could finally be served. She paused, drawing a deep breath. I cannot speak for the dead. I cannot say what sentence my mother, my grandparents would deem fitting for the men who ended their lives. But I can speak for the living. For the child who grew up without her family. For the woman who has spent the past year piecing together a shattered history. Her gaze swept the courtroom, taking in the reporters, the jurors, the judge. There is no sentence that can restore what was lost. No punishment that can heal the wounds inflicted on 3 generations of my family. But there can be justice. There can be truth acknowledged. There can be a record that states clearly these men committed terrible crimes, and they did not escape accountability. As she returned to her seat, the silence in the courtroom felt weighted, respectful. Even Reynolds seemed momentarily shaken, his confident mask slipping to reveal something that might have been remorse, or perhaps merely the realization that his carefully constructed life was irrevocably destroyed. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. The judge sentenced Vincent Reynolds to 3 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole, 1 for each life he had taken Emma, David, and Carolyn. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters clamored for comments. Lisa faced the cameras calmly. Emily's hand tightened hers. Michael, a solid presence at her side. Today marks the end of a long journey for my family, she said. But it also marks a beginning. The Grace Blackwood Haven opens next month, offering shelter and support to women and children escaping violence. From tragedy, we create hope. From destruction, we build anew. A reporter called out, "Ms. Blackwood, how do you feel about the sentencing?" "Justice was served," Lisa replied simply. "Now I can focus on the future instead of the past." Another shouted, "Will you ever forgive Reynolds and Parker?" Lisa considered this, choosing her words carefully. Forgiveness isn't something owed to those who show no remorse. My energy is better spent honoring those who love me than considering those who harmed us. The farmhouse transformation accelerated after the trial concluded. With winter approaching, the focus shifted to interior renovations, insulation wiring, plumbing the bones of the structure that would make it functional before aesthetic touches could be applied. Lisa spent every spare moment at the farm, often working alongside the contractors, learning the secrets of the house that had sheltered her family across generations. Emily thrived in the rural setting, making friends at the local school, and spending weekends exploring the property with neighborhood children. Her talk of Lily had become less frequent, though occasionally Lisa would find her daughter in the attic reading nook, apparently deep in conversation with someone invisible. "Is Lily still with you?" Lisa asked one evening, settling beside Emily on the window seat they'd built together. Emily nodded, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. "Sometimes, not as much as before. She says she doesn't need to stay now that we're fixing everything." "What about the others, Amanda, Emma?" "They visit." Emily traced patterns on the window glass. "They like to watch us making the house happy again. But they don't need to stay forever either." Lisa studied her daughter's profile, illuminated by the setting sun. Emily's auburn hair glowed like a halo around her small face. "Does it scare you, seeing people others can't see?" Emily shook her head. "It's just like having more friends. Some people can see trees, but not the wind moving through them. I can see both." "What a beautiful way to look at it." Lisa brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. "You're very special. You know that." "Everyone is special, Mom. Some people just forget how to see it." 2 weeks before Christmas, when the first snow dusted the farm's newly repaired roof, Lisa received an unexpected call from Mercer. "George Parker wants to meet with you," the detective said without a preamble. "Says he has information about your mother that wasn't in his official statement. It's your choice entirely." Lisa considered refusing. This man had destroyed her family, robbed her of her mother, her identity, but something in her needed closure, needed to look him in the eye just once. The meeting took place in an interview room at the state police headquarters. George Parker looked smaller than Lisa had imagined, a middle-aged man in prison orange shoulders, slumped eyes darting nervously. "Thank you for coming," he said as Lisa took the seat across from him. Detective Mercer stood in the corner watchful. "I'm not here for you," Lisa said flatly. "I'm here for the truth." Parker nodded, accepting this. "I want to clarify something. I didn't kill your mother. Vincent did that on his own. I never wanted her dead. Just silenced, frightened away from you." Lisa studied him. This man who had fathered children, built a career, lived a normal life while her family lay buried and forgotten. "At least you have the decency not to lie. Carolyn recognized you when she came to Oak Ridge. She'd found old photographs of you with her father, started asking questions, threatening to go to the police. You panicked. So you had Reynolds threaten her, force her to leave her child behind." "That was the plan. But Vincent, he always took things too far. Had a temper." Parker trailed off. "And my grandparents, did they refuse to cooperate too?" Parker looked away. "That was different business. They discovered the embezzlement. I was young, stupid. It escalated." "Escalated into murder," Lisa said coldly. Parker leaned forward. "There's something else. Something that wasn't part of my deal with the prosecutors. Something for you." Lisa waited, suspicious. "Your mother had an insurance policy. Small, but it named you as beneficiary. After she disappeared, I redirected it, invested it. It's grown considerably over 20 years. You stole from me, too." "I did, but I've signed it all over to you. $5 million, give or take. It's blood money, I know, but maybe you can use it for something good. Something Caroline would have wanted." Lisa stood, unable to bear his presence any longer. "My mother's name to you was Amanda. You don't get to call her Caroline. You don't get to pretend you knew her or cared about her, and you don't get absolution from me. Outside in the crisp December air, Lisa breathed deeply, cleansing her lungs of the stale prison atmosphere. Mercer joined her a moment later. The money is real, the detective said. Already transferred to a trust in your name. His lawyers arranged it yesterday. I don't want his blood money. I understand, but consider this, it was Caroline's money first meant for you. Maybe there's a way to honor her with it. That evening, as snow fell in lazy spirals outside the farmhouse windows, Lisa shared Parker's revelation with Michael. They sat at the newly restored kitchen table, coffee mugs steaming between them. $5 million, Michael whistled softly. That would fund the Haven for years. It feels tainted, Lisa admitted. Like accepting something from him somehow lessens what he did. Or maybe it's poetic justice, Michael suggested. Using his money to help the very people he hurt, women and children escaping men like him. Lisa turned the idea over in her mind. The ultimate transformation. Blood money into sanctuary. The first phase of the Haven opened in early spring when crocuses pushed through the melting snow and the bare trees showed the first blush of green. The main house had been fully restored, its weathered exterior now gleaming with fresh paint, the sagging porch rebuilt with sturdy oak. 3 new cabins stood near the barn, which had been converted into community space and offices. The entire town turned out for the opening ceremony, Mabel Jenkins directing the volunteer team, Sheriff Ramsey handling security, Eleanor from the library organizing donated books for the children's reading room. Lisa stood on the porch watching as the first residents arrived, 2 women with 3 children between them, faces tentative but hopeful as they took in their new temporary home. Welcome, Lisa greeted them, extending her hands. You're safe here. Later, as the children explored the playground, equipment Michael had built, their initial shyness giving way to laughter, Lisa found herself standing beside Mercer, who had come for the opening ceremony. I have news, Mercer said quietly. Thought you should hear it from me first. Lisa turned questioning. We found more remains at properties connected to Reynolds and Parker. 5 victims, total spanning 3 decades. Cold cases being reopened across 3 states. Your family wasn't their only target. Lisa absorbed this feeling, a complex mixture of grief and vindication. Other families will get answers now. Because of you, Mercer said. Because you refused to stop searching. The summer brought a wave of media attention. A feature in a national magazine highlighted the Haven's innovative approach to trauma recovery and family reunification. Donations poured in, allowing Lisa to expand services beyond emergency housing to include legal advocacy, job training, counseling, and childcare. Emily, thriving in her new environment, became the unofficial welcoming committee for children arriving at the Haven. Her natural empathy and gentle presence seemed to calm even the most traumatized kids. Lisa noticed something remarkable. Children who had witnessed violence, who had retreated into silence or explosive behavior, often opened up to Emily in ways they couldn't with adults. She just knows things. One mother told Lisa, watching her son laugh for the first time in months as he played with Emily. It's like she can see right through all the hurt to who they really are underneath. A child psychologist visiting the Haven observed Emily with the other children and approached Lisa afterward. Your daughter has an extraordinary gift for emotional attunement. It's rare to see such intuitive understanding in someone so young. She's always been able to see what others miss, Lisa said, choosing her words carefully. As summer faded into autumn, Michael's presence at the farm shifted from professional to personal. He'd officially become the Haven's facilities manager, but more importantly, he'd become essential to Lisa and Emily's daily lives. Evenings often found the 3 of them on the porch sharing the day's events, planning future projects, creating a family bond that felt both new and somehow ancient, as if reclaiming a pattern established generations ago. One evening in late September, Michael approached Lisa as she worked in the vegetable garden they'd established behind the house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. I have something for you, he said, a nervous edge to his voice she'd never heard before. He held out a small wooden box weathered with age. Found this in the barn while fixing the east wall, hidden in a secret compartment. I think Walter meant for you to have it. Lisa opened the box with careful fingers. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay a simple gold band with a modest diamond. Beneath it, a note in Walter's handwriting, "For Lily when she finds her way home." Some circles remain unbroken. It was Emma's. Lisa breathed, her throat tight with emotion. "I had it cleaned and resized." Michael said softly, "I thought maybe, if you wanted, it could be yours now." Lisa looked up at him, at this man who had helped her rebuild, not just a house, but a life. "Are you asking what I think you are asking?" Michael knelt in the garden soil, taking her hand. "I came here to fix a roof, not knowing I was building a foundation for something much greater." "I love you, Lisa. I love Emily. I want to walk beside you through whatever comes next, the joys, the challenges, the everyday miracles of building a life together." In the golden light of autumn, with her hands still covered in garden soil and her heart full to bursting, Lisa gave him her answer. 1 year to the day after Lisa first arrived in Oak Ridge, she and Michael stood beneath the ancient oak tree at the edge of the property. A small gathering of friends, Mabel, Ramsey, Mercer, Eleanor, and the Haven staff, formed a semicircle around them. Lisa wore a simple white dress, a crown of wildflowers in her auburn hair. Michael looked both nervous and joyful in his dark suit, his work-roughened hands gentle as he took hers. "I came to this place searching for answers," Lisa said, her vows clear in the autumn air. "I found a history, a legacy, and a future I never imagined. And I found you, steady, kind, patient, the partner I never dared hope for." As they exchanged rings, Emma's band now on Lisa's finger, she felt a profound sense of rightness, of completion. The circle Walter had mentioned in his note was indeed unbroken, spanning generations, transcending even death. Emily, radiant in her flower girl dress, watched the ceremony with solemn joy. Later, during the reception held in the barn, Lisa found her daughter sitting alone on a hay bale, apparently deep in conversation with empty air. "Are you talking to Lily?" Lisa asked, settling beside her. Emily nodded. "And Grandma Amanda, and Great-Grandma Emma, and Great-Grandpa David, they came to see you get married." Lisa felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the autumn breeze. "What do they think?" "They're happy, especially Grandpa Walter. He says Michael is the right one." Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting wisdom beyond her years. "But they say they need to go soon." "Go where?" "They've been waiting for everything to be fixed for you to be okay. Now you have a new family, and the house is happy again, and the Haven is helping people." Emily took her mother's hand. "They've been waiting to say goodbye." Tears welled in Lisa's eyes. Can I say goodbye too?" Emily nodded solemnly. "They can hear you. They've always heard you." Lisa felt foolish, suddenly speaking to empty air, yet compelled to try. "Thank you," she whispered. "All of you. For waiting. For watching over us. For leading us home." Emily smiled, as if listening to a response Lisa couldn't hear. "Grandma Amanda says she loves you more than words. That she's so proud of who you've become. Grandpa Walter says thank you for finishing what he couldn't. And Lily says—" Emily giggled suddenly. "Lily says I'm a pretty good big sister to all the kids who come here." Lisa pulled her daughter close, tears flowing freely now. "You are the very best." That evening, after the celebration ended and the guests departed, Lisa stood alone in the farmhouse kitchen. The space had been completely modernized, yet somehow still held echoes of the past of Amanda, baking cookies, of Walter, reading the newspaper at the table, of little Lily racing across the linoleum in sock feet. She took the candle she'd placed on the windowsill each night since moving in and lit it carefully. Then she added 2 more 3 flames glowing in the darkness. One for Walter, one for Amanda, and one for Emma, the grandmother she'd never known, but whose blood and spirit flowed through her veins. "We did it," she whispered to the dancing flames. "We brought light back to this place." Outside, the newly installed security lights illuminated the grounds, creating a perimeter of safety around the property. Inside each cabin, families settled into their first night of peace after long journeys of fear and uncertainty. The Haven had already helped a dozen women and their children begin rebuilding lives shattered by violence. Each success story felt like a tribute to Carol and to Emma, to all those who had been silenced. Michael found her there, standing silent vigil at the window. He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Blackwood Lawson." Lisa leaned into his embrace. "I was thinking about inheritance. When I first came here, I thought it meant property, something tangible you could hold in your hands. Now I understand it's so much more. It's stories and memories. It's purpose and belonging. It's knowing where you came from so you can choose where you're going." "And where are we going next?" Michael asked, his voice warm against her ear. Lisa turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had become her partner in all things. Emily's laughter drifted down from upstairs where she was getting ready for bed, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would come and bring with it joy, purpose, family, all the things that had once seemed impossible. "Forward," Lisa said simply. "Together." In her bedroom, Emily settled beneath quilts passed down through generations of Blackwoods, restored and mended by Lisa's careful hands. Her window overlooked the property, the cabins with their warmly lit windows, the barn where today's celebration had marked a new beginning. She closed her eyes, smiling at the familiar presence beside her bed, the last visit she knew somehow, though it brought no sadness. Lily had taught her so much, shown her how to see what others missed, how to help those whose pain ran too deep for words. Now Lily was ready to become fully part of her, no longer separate, no longer waiting, like a seed becoming a flower still itself, but also something new. "Good night," she whispered to the quiet room. "Thank you for staying until we found our way home." Outside, the farm stretched peaceful under starlight, the land that had witnessed both terrible darkness and remarkable light. The old oak trees that had stood sentinel through generations of Blackwoods whispered secrets to the night wind. The renovated barn, the new cabins, the playground equipment gleaming in the moonlight, all spoke of transformation of life, reclaiming spaces once touched by death. Lisa moved through the house, checking locks, a habit born of hard experience that even safety couldn't entirely erase. She paused at Emily's door, listening to her daughter's steady breathing, then continued to the master bedroom where Michael waited. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new families seeking shelter, new stories waiting to be heard. But tonight, in this moment, all was well. The circle was complete, the inheritance claimed, the journey home accomplished. And in the gentle Iowa darkness, the Blackwood farm stood strong and steadfast, its foundations rooted in truth. At last, its windows glowing with hard-won light, its heart beating with the rhythm of lives being rebuilt one precious day at a time.